For those of you who brought your Bibles in, because I'm making a point because I forgot to do this last week, we are going to be in Ephesians chapter 6, where we have been throughout the past couple weeks. Ephesians chapter 6, and then if you want to bookmark that, we're also going to be in Romans chapter 5. Romans chapter 5, those are the two verses we'll be looking at this morning for those who brought the Bible. Ephesians chapter 6, Romans chapter 5. So we continue on in our series about the armor of God. And I don't know if I said this last week, Jen came up with this name afterwards of taking fashion advice from Tall Chris. Because look, doesn't that just scream fashion? Doesn't that just say this is the latest trend in what you should be wearing these days? Yeah, you're right. But we've been talking about what the series is about, is talking about the armor of God and really what that means. And even I hope that you are learning more, even if you've heard this in Sunday school growing up or heard of it before, even if you can name all the pieces, even as I'm going deeper into the study, there's so much more about what the armor of God reveals about our relationship with God and what He has given us to enter into the world. And I hope that you see that. As we talk more about what the armor of God does for us. But as we've been looking at it, we started a couple weeks ago with this idea, or with this recognition that we are in a battle, and we need to always recognize that. I will say that probably every year to remind you as much as we can, that we are in a battle always, for our lives, for our faith, that there's this battle happening around us, and we must pay attention to how we prepare for that battle. We can't just wake up and be like, all right, let's just see what today brings and just go with it. Or, okay, this is a struggle I'm dealing with, let's just see what happens. We need to recognize that there's this battle, that there's this spiritual battle between God and Satan, between heaven and earth that is trying to take us away from our relationship with God, that we need to pay attention to. And then as we talked about that more, we recognize that the armor of God is not just about our relationship with God. It's not just making sure that we're doing the right things or that we have good spiritual habits, but it's about knowing what we are going into, who we are really fighting against, and recognizing what God can do for us in those situations, recognizing how powerful God really is, recognizing how powerful our enemy really is, then recognizing how much more powerful God is, and strengthening us and fighting with us against those forces. As we talked about last week, we talked about the breastplate and the belt, and we used Tall Chris for those who have not been here. Or seeing it on Instagram, and you're just wondering why this weird tall man kid's here with his arms crossed. Helping us model all the different things. Last week, we talked about the breastplate of righteousness and the belt of truth, and what that really means. And as we said, that what the breastplate does, as it protects our heart, protects our core and our vital organs, and as the belt helps us in the fight and for all the different uses that it's used for, that our battle must start with aligning the deepest parts of ourselves. When we talk about the breastplate of righteousness, it's about aligning the deepest parts of ourselves, our heart, our inside, the very core of who we are and how we connect with God, aligning that with God's heart, and then shamelessly equipping ourselves with what we believe, saying, God, I am fighting for you, I'm on your team, this battle is yours, and I am on your side, and I believe that with the very, very deepest parts of who I am, and that's where the breastplate starts with us. So now we continue on as we see all the different pieces of the armor of God. And we talk about the feet of the gospel of peace, which isn't necessarily part of the armor, because most of us, I think, have had feet at some point in our lives, right? And so feet, but it's really, as we dive deeper into this verse, it talks about really what are we equipping with our feet. Because again, if we look at Tall Chris and we go into battle and picture the big raging battle and everything, and you're okay, what do I need to fight? Tall Chris's weird flip-flops are not what you want in battle. Can you just imagine someone coming in battle and I'm ready to go, and he starts running, you hear that, that flip-flops have, that, I can't, someone do a flip-flop next to me. Now, what would it sound like? I see someone, I'm not going. Oh, Paul, can you just give us a walk up and down the thing? Just imagine this is battle, and you're it's actually very quiet. Okay.
Whatever.
But doesn't that just scream fear?
Oh, yeah. I'm so terrified.
I am so terrified of that.
Well, as we equip tall Chris and I can't really take the sandals off, they're like blue or whatever, and plus so you can see the visual, we're gonna be like protecting like the whole shin guard and everything, not actual shoes. But it's all about the equipping for battle. And as we talk about the shoes, I thought about, and the title came from like, is it the shoes? There's this game called NBA Jam that was really popular like in the 90s. Anybody ever play NBA Jam? Anybody know? NBA Jam? Okay, and I know there's like updated versions, still not as good as the classic. But if you're not familiar with NBA Jam, it's like a 2-on-2 basketball game. And it uses real teams and real players, and it's like a short court or whatever. But it's not just a regular basketball game. It's not just like you pass and shoot the ball. They jump 20 feet in the air and do 20 different somersaults and then dunk the ball if you push the buttons right. You can like curl the ball down court and then they do this weird trick. And they say it's like very arcade style basketball where everything's just extreme. But if you do a slam dunk in this game, usually if you do it right, you'll be flying through the air and the announcer who's calling the game just every now and then will yell out, "Is it the shoes?" And then you like slam dunk and like the crowd cheers and you're like, "Oh yay, slam dunk the ball." But there's this phrase like, "Is it the shoes?" And it's talking about how the shoes made this player able to do this slam dunk. And as we think about all the different shoes that we have in our lives, I mean, we wear different shoes for different occasions. Some of you play sports, like you have cleats that you'd wear, or you have basketball shoes that you'd wear on the court that are different than your tennis shoes. You have your dress shoes that you would wear to church or weddings or formal events. If you're going casual, you have tennis shoes, flip-flops. Water shoes if you're going to the pool or the beach and you just want to be cool and dad life like me. All kinds of different shoes for different occasions that allow you to do different things. And so as we talk about shoes and equipping our feet just as part of the armor of God, it's no different than that. So as we dive into, go back one screen for me. As we talk about shoes, I mean, the practicality of them are no different than what we think. But shoes and armor, we have our Roman guard, and you can see like he has shoes and special shin guards with that. But especially when you think about going into battle and what the shoes are for, like yeah, it protects the legs and the feet from the elements and anything that can slow a soldier down, like thinking about like rocks that are there, twigs, or anything. Anybody ever step on a Lego?
Yes, I do it all the time.
So imagine
filled with Legos.
she stepped on it, she's like, I'm done, and just like
Yeah, pretty much.
I've stepped on some.
But so like picture stepping on a Lego, or like if you've ever stepped on I know this happened a couple of me a few times, but like if you step on a twig and it has a big enough thorn or like stick and it goes into your shoe, right? Like imagine trying to fight and you're stepping on the rocks, Legos, twigs and all that, and you're like, this is me sword fighting by the way. And he's stepping on Legos, so just making sure we're getting the whole picture in here. And like you're hurting and you're like, got it, I'm coming to get you. And you're like, picture that. And just how ridiculous that would be if you're like the enemy and you're like, what are you doing? And you're just like, you have shoes on and you're running, you're like, you're done. That's me pushing people up. So I just revealed a lot of like how I fight, how I step on Legos, and how I push. So there you go. Yeah, I practice with Asher, our Lego one. But just like how shoes do, but especially think about it in battle, like it protects the legs from so many different elements and make sure like it can't get hurt. Because, and I know this might seem like a duh statement, but we don't really think about the intensity of this. Feet are very, very important when it comes to like running and fighting, yeah? But like if you picture, like if you know like the movie or the Battle of Troy and like that legend and like Achilles, that fighter, and how he was this great fighter, but he was taken out because his Achilles tendon got injured, and that's where we get the name Achilles tendon. He wasn't able to run and walk and fight anymore because his legs got injured. I didn't know this, but we used to know this friend of ours that had a daughter, and she was missing a couple of toes, and she wasn't able to walk right because like toes provide like balance and stability, and like we are able to walk the way that we do because the way all 5 toes work. And if one toe gets injured, our balance gets thrown off. We're not able to run as well. We're not able to fight as well. And so many different things. Or we talked about like stepping on a Lego and how we just have to stop and like get over that for a second. And so our feet protect us in that. And then also, and this is a weird way to say it, like it enhances the ability of the feet. I'm not saying like it enhances the smell of the foot, which sometimes our shoes do. Some of you know what I'm talking about, and some of you are like, yeah, that's true. But it enhances the ability of the feet. Like, yes, we were made as people in general to be able to run well barefooted, but then somewhere down the line, someone came up with the idea of like the tennis shoe and how to like provide traction with the shoe. And now we're able to run faster because of the abilities that shoes give us. Basketball players are able to like pivot and move and all the different things they do because of how their shoes are designed. Track stars are able to run faster because they wear special shoes. Football players have their special cleats and everything like that. People are able to jump higher. Like we know what shoes are able to do and how it enhances what we as people are able to do in general. And fighting shoes are no different. So that's where it brings us to Ephesians chapter 6, verse 15, as we continue on with that passage about the armor of God. So it talks about putting on the breastplate and putting on the belt, and it continues, and I'll start with verse 14, just for the context. Stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist and with the breastplate of righteousness in place. Verse 15, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. So making sure that your feet are fitted with the readiness of the gospel of peace, which I know is kind of this weird phrase, this weird statement. So I just want to take a couple minutes of breaking it down. That when it says making sure your feet are ready, I'm not going to like go into the deep dive of the word, but like go ahead and go back to the word. There we go. Meaning of readiness. There's a couple different meanings, like the Greek that goes into there. Like when it says ready, there's a couple different meanings that it could have, and that just kind of phrases to illustrate that. Of like, get your shoes on ready. Of like, you are leaving, you're getting your shoes on, you're ready to go, right? You're going into battle, you have your shoes on, you're ready to fight. Or there's the like preparation for what's coming. I've got my rain boots on ready. Like if you know that it's about to rain, so you wear special shoes that can handle the rain. If you're about to go to the snow, you have snow boots on that can handle the snow. So there's this readiness of the type of shoe that you're wearing. If you're about to play basketball, you have your basketball shoes on. The type of readiness that says, I know the situation I'm going into, and I'm going to be ready for that. Or there's even more the like, I won't slip on the ice ready, of like, my feet give me more security, more power, or whatever. I love those videos. Asher's really into America's Funniest Home Videos, that show. But even on YouTube, and this has even happened a few times at winter camp when there's been times that we've had snow and ice. Like I love videos, not when someone gets hurt, because I'm not mean, but when someone's like walking and they step on the ice and they do that whole like whatever, you know what I'm talking about, when they like slip or they're like dancing for a little bit and like whatever, and it's like very funny and awkward and weird. Those crack me up. Has anybody ever had that experience, right?
Yeah.
There's one time at winter camp, I thought I was wearing good shoes, but I stepped on a patch of ice, and I didn't fall, but no joke, like I threw my arm back so bad that like my arm, I couldn't use my arm for a week because of like, I just threw it and I just sat there for a second. Nobody was around, I was just like froze, like, can I move? I don't know. And then my arm hurt, like,
Ow, then you fall.
whatever. But there is the sense of, I didn't fall, I made it out, but I like tiptoed for the rest of the way. No, I tell you,
After that.
I made it to worship.
I flew.
Did you go to the ER?
No. Okay. But there is a firm belief that when it's talking about making sure that your feet are ready, it's about making sure that your feet have a firm foundation. That your feet are prepared and like can stand firm. That your feet are stronger than what they were before. It's not just about making sure that you have shoes on, but it's about the foundation of which you are moving on. Like, what is your motivation? What is the foundation for that? And then as we go to the gospel of peace, and like breaking that down, and looking at each of the different words there, like we see gospel. Gospel, we talk about like sharing the gospel. We heard the gospel this weekend at camp. We heard the gospel. The gospel is about the story of Jesus' death and resurrection for us. How Jesus died for us, how Jesus came back from the dead. Like the gospel story is about what Jesus did for us. And when we think about peace, it's not just making sure that we don't fight. That like, hey, guys, let's all just be calm and peaceful and just relax. Like everything's here. Like it's not about being peaceful that way, but about saying, okay, there's this lack of conflict between me and God now because of what Jesus did. And there's peace between God and myself. And because of that peace, it's going to change the way that I live. And because of that peace, I want to share how God loves me. Like there's this attitude of peace that comes because I no longer have conflict with God. And so we see those two phrases, and when we put it all together, the gospel of peace is talking about the victory of no more conflict. The victory of no more conflict with God, no more separation from God, no more like butting heads with God. It's God dying on the cross, God sending Jesus to die on the cross for us, so that we can be with him and take that conflict away, that we're not fighting with him. And that's where we go into Romans chapter 5. Romans chapter 5, verse 1 reminds us that therefore, since we have been justified through faith, that since we have been saved through faith because God has made a way because Jesus died for us, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Because of our faith, because of our salvation, because of everything that Jesus did for us, we have peace with God. We are no longer separated. We are no longer in conflict with him. There's nothing keeping us from God. There's nothing fighting with God. Because of Jesus, we have peace with God. That is what the gospel of peace does for us. So when we put all of that together, when we talk about like what do we get ready with, what do we equip our feet with, it's talking about what must carry or motivate us through any battle. What must carry or motivate us through any battle is the relationship of peace that Jesus was willing to die for. That as we go into the world, as we go to school, as we go to our friends, as we think about our struggles, like what motivates us in all of that, what we aim for, what we look for, what we are ready for is the victory of peace that Jesus has given us. That our foundation, that our motivation, that everything that we are about is about what Jesus did for us to be with God. And so I want you to remember that being ready is about having that firm foundation, about having that strength, having that preparation of knowing what Jesus died for you, which is that grace in your relationship with God, in your relationship with everybody else. And so we give you this memory verse, as we said, in chapter 6:14, that your feet are fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. And as we look at the bigger verse, so that we can all remember that. And we see that we put on the full armor of God so that we have the stand firm in with the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness placed in your feet. We have this whole verse that we would recognize of how God is equipping us. But the three questions I want you to ask yourself is think about the feet of readiness. Is what motivates you in your faith? What's your foundation? What are you prepared for? What are you willing to take into the world? And then how do you value the peace that you have with God, and how do you bring that peace into the world? How do you value that lack of conflict between you and God? And three, how is that peace foundational to how you live? How is the fact that you have no conflict with God, how does that change the way that you live and interact with the world, interact with yourself, interact with God, knowing that there is no conflict between you? Let us pray, and I pray that you go into the world knowing the peace that God has given to you, and let that be your motivation in all that you do. Let's pray. Dear Father, Lord, we pray thank you that you are the one who makes us right, that you are the one who prepares our feet and how we go into the world. You are the one who carries us into every situation. It's the foundation of your peace and your love and the lack of conflict between you and us that guides us through it. God, may we see what that peace is and how valuable that is to each and every one. And God, may we live our lives based on your peace. Your love, Lord, we thank you. Guys, we have lesson notes at the door. Lesson notes.